Hola, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say hello? Maybe we'll do this whole episode in Spanish. Who knows? But today we have a
Señores y
very
señoras.
hola, señores, right? Uh, so today we are joined by a very special guest here, Elias Torres, and he is the CTO and co-founder of Drift. If you're outreach fans, you've probably heard of Drift. You've probably integrated Drift with outreach. But we have him here today. The reason we brought him on is we've been hearing a lot about diversity in the workplace and being Latinos in tech, people of color in tech. And I think one of the people that are promoting this the most and know a ton about it and have great things to say is Elias Torres. So, um, with further ado, Elias, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, lo primero is that you have to say Elias Torres.
Elias Torres, there we go.
That's awesome. So, thank you for having me here.
uh,
Thank you for reaching out. I love to see a Mexican brother here uh,
mhm, mhm.
recording
Pero
Zoom all the way from Mexico right now, right?
yes, all the way from Mexico to Mexico. Ahora.
And I love that when I got your email, you're like, well, hey, I wanna interview a fellow Latino, and it's like Andrew Mewborn. How do you pronounce it? And I'm like, who's this guy?
And he doesn't look Latino at all. He doesn't look Latino at all. Pero sí puede hablar español, sí es Latino.
Perfecto. And this is awesome. Just to show, right there in that even little detail, right? The
Mhm,
diversity of how we are as a human race, that we're just, we can be so mixed, and there's not one thing that should be labeling us, right? But in reality, we should embrace the uniqueness of every individual, and how we can just, become ourselves if we were respected and treated equally, right? Especially in the workplace. So we'll talk about that. You want a little bit of history about myself, right?
yeah.
I'm from Nicaragua, Central America. A lot of people's like, where is that? So it's like, it's a little strip of land that
Somewhere
connects
down there.
the large north and the south, and how all of it is the American continent. We could do a little geography on that. So I'm from Nicaragua. I came when I was 17. I did a little bit of high school here. I did college in Tampa, Florida. Family helped me immigrate, received me, got me a little bit of a chance, helped my mother and my siblings. But really, I came to this country chasing the American dream, and that's really why I've been, named that series about my own journey with David Cancel, my partner, co-founder of Drift, CEO, as we are just chasing the dream, and how we want to build an enduring company to show that everybody in America can do this, right? Everybody in the U.S. So that is, our journey is, I was in Florida, I went to school, I studied business, but the reality is I always was interested in computers and building software and being an engineer. But, there's not one straight line to your goal and to your target. And when I worked for IBM for about 10 years. I moved to Connecticut, and then I moved to Massachusetts. I've been in Massachusetts for like over 20 years now. So definitely I've been living here the longest in my life. And this is what I call home: family, children, companies drift. And after being at IBM for 10 years, I felt this urge to become an entrepreneur, right? To just carry the responsibility, make the decisions, and just make a larger impact than what you can do working for a 400,000 person company at the time at IBM. And that's when I met David. David and I have been working together since about 2008. So it's about 12 years, 4 companies, and we've been in this journey of building something bigger every single time. Last time we did HubSpot, and we felt that staying there was not going to help us fulfill this mission that we have co-developed, right? Which is to become a role model for the Latinx community in the United States, and say, like, can we build one of the best global enduring companies, software as a service, B2B company in marketing and sales? And that's really what we wanted to do. And we appreciate this journey. Is hard, but it's also awesome, to be, following the footsteps, same thing, working together with in this journey with Manny Medina as well. So it's like, since the moment I met him, we've been really close, and we stay in touch, and we just help each other in whatever way we can. So congrats.
Absolutely. And I was just gonna say, you wanted to build one of the best companies as a Latino founder. That you're competing with Manny for that because Manny's also into that, right? And you
The more,
guys have had, yeah, go ahead.
the more, the merrier.
Exactly. The more, the merrier. Hopefully, I'm gunning to be one of those one day too. So we'll see. Hopefully soon. But one thing that I noticed on a couple of shows, even you did with Manny, Elias, is one thing that kind of resonated with me is that like diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace are really no longer business niceties, right? They're necessities, and that's a theme that you've dug into, and you've also seen organizations that are 400,000 people. You've grown organizations from zero to now I think drift 4 or 500 employees, however many there is there. Like, how is you being a Latin founder that immigrated here to the United States? How do you incorporate diversity from the beginning, right? From nothing to something. Like, how do you keep that going, right? Because as we scale, things get lost in translation. We get distracted and we forget like what's going on, and we're just like, hey, we need to hire quickly and get things done. So, how do you keep incorporating that?
It's how can I say it's really I guess that's the difference, right? When you have founders of color, at the helm of a company, it's like it's really who we are, right? This is what I do every day. I mean, like every day I'm discussing diversity and inclusion in this company, right? Every day I have a conversation with someone about someone that we're hiring, about a board member, about an executive, about hiring an SDR, hiring an SDR
Mm,
manager. It just happens. It just always comes to me. I get a message, something we're putting on the website today. Um, when this is who you are and who you care and your passion and your fundamental core beliefs, you can't escape it, right? It's like you're going to do it every single moment wherever you are. And I think that is the difference that people don't understand. Um, when Why do we need more people of color at every level in the company? Because if we're relegated to just a function, a checkbox, it just doesn't happen. If this is so hard for Drift that has two founders of color, right? Imagine how harder it is for companies that don't have any of representation at this level, right?
mm,
Because people um, just don't have the answers. They never really dealt with this, and I think if they never dealt with it, not because they didn't want to, but it's just it was kind of like buried in a way, kind of similar to a lot of the stuff that is happening today with blacks and Black Lives Matters, right? It is like this stuff has been happening. I've been educating myself, and it's just like because I also didn't grow up here, and so I'm learning all the history, and I'm like, wow, this problem has been here. It's just swept under the rug, and that's why it's no longer a nicety, right? We have to confront it, and we have to go deal with it. But we don't have the answers as a society, right? And so that's why it's very difficult. But I think that representation is the first place is to really show commitment, to be allowed to be held accountable, right, by people that care about this, that can like think about it day and night. We go to bed thinking about it. We wake up thinking about it.
mhm. And that's interesting. So I've been reading a lot lately about like, when have I succeeded? When have I seen people succeed? And it's never, for me, it's never been setting goals. It's always been setting habits, right? And that's what it sounds like you're doing right now is like you're not making it a goal. You're making it a habit of like everything you do, everything you live, breathe, when you go to bed at night, when you're hiring and every practice, like it's a habit to think of how do we make it more diverse, right?
Yes.
Not just like, hey, diversity is a thing. It's, right now there's a lot of talk about it, but make it a habit, and from the top down, that's how you get everyone to like believe in it, right? Versus just like a flavor of the week type initiative from yourself.
I mean, think about it is that I think that goals and numbers are good to measure the progress, but it really has to be a habit. For example, um, what number would you pick that should be diverse in a company?
Todos, right? Everyone
No,
should be diverse.
but what's the number?
What's it? I don't know. I don't know. A majority, maybe. Who knows? I don't have the answer, right?
Nobody has the answer, right? So what happened is that people, like, they look at the benchmarks and they say, well, companies have 13%, underrepresented people or something like that. And it's like, okay, so, and we're 11, and it's like this fight and this struggle. How do we go from 11 to 13? It's just, that's completely and utterly ridiculous, right? It's like
Yeah.
we can't be, we can't. There is no number. There is no right number, right? It doesn't really matter. But it's about building the habit, right? To um, to recruit in a diverse way, right? To source people from different places, right? To
Mhm.
interview them better, to understand about their backgrounds and their situations, right? To be a better interviewer, to uh, pay them fairly in the offers, right? To give them good feedback on why they don't fit if they don't have the experience, to help and shepherd them along, to connect them with other people, so you can create and expand the network. It's like there's just so
Mhm.
many steps to this, that those are the habits that matter, right? And then we'll figure out what the right number. I mean, we should never stop, like you said at the beginning, todos, right? All of us, right? All of us should be diverse, right? And so, how do we get there? Right? It's not going to be just by saying let's go from 11% to 13, right? It's going to have to be a everything. What is the right habit that we should be having in every step of the hiring process? But not only the hiring, but the welcoming, the onboarding, and then the promotion.
And that's a good point. I think before we started recording this too, one thing that I brought up is like that I've been thinking about lately as I've educated myself is referral programs, right? Like in tech, we have referral programs and everyone gets a bonus if you refer someone. But like you think if the majority of us are not diverse for lack of a better term, or not people of color, Latinos, and then we're all referring other people that are like us, it gets weird, right? It's like, are we just recruiting the same type of people again? Is this adding to the problem, right?
It's
Like,
absolutely referral networks. It's this is what people call systemic racism, right? I can even tell you which one it is right now at the end of the day. But this is the problem that when people start companies, they're like, oh yeah, you go into your network, and referral program is the best form of hiring. Every company struggles to hire, and grow as fast as they need to. And so they're like, how do we do it? Create a referral program. Startups entirely, that I've been funded to support this, right? The referral program. Then you realize that that's just perpetuating the issue. We are still a segregated society by far, right? And so you end up going to the people in your circles, in your schools. The schools are segregated, right? They're not diverse. And so it's like your neighborhoods, your cities, where you live by zip code, absolutely the majority of the referrals are going to be the same as you. And so what happens is not going to help. So at Drift, for example, these are the kinds of stuff that we're constantly experimenting. We don't know really the right answer, right? And everybody talk about the system and the oppressing, enduring, white supremacy is when lawyers come and say, I don't think that that's a good idea. There might be a problem with that. And it just stops everybody from trying, right? And so, for example, something that we're trying to drift is that I double the referral for an underrepresented person, woman or person of color,
nice.
right? To try
Wow.
to, like, like trying to balance
Hmm.
between punishing, right, or making it unfair, or incentivizing people to refer more in the network, right? And
Hmm.
so the things that I'm like constantly thinking about it is, for example, um, making management bonuses based on the diversity of their teams and the goals for the rest of the year, and the hiring of like what percentage of their team they hire is URP, right?
Wow.
So the other one is that we were just discussing with my recruiting team. They were like, should we be, instead of giving money to the person, should we be donating money? The same bonus, right? Should we instead be donating it to the organizations that are supporting Black and Brown STEM programs, or education programs, or college or internships, right? To help them move along. And so now we have a more of a societal impact that we're making, and not just making money by referring someone into the company. And so, like, for example, maybe no bonus if the person is not underrepresented, and
Mm-hmm.
if you are, then we do maybe half cash, half donation, right? So those are
Mm-hmm.
examples of things that people have to get creative, because usually what people think about it is they'll just be like, oh, let's just do the Rooney Rule or something. And so let's make sure that we interview at least one candidate that is underrepresented, for this position. And that's not enough.
No, no, that is, and something that like comes to mind when you're talking about this, Elias. You're very passionate about this, right? Like, which is great because you come from that background, right? Like you come from Latino America, and you come here and you're passionate about that. When you're saying all this, and you've made it a habit, but how I'm thinking about other organizations that haven't made it, that don't have founders that are Latino, right? Maybe they're American born and raised. Like, do you need a DEI person specifically to make changes within the organization, who has to make this a habit if no one else is thinking about it, right? If they don't have an Elias in the organization, do you have to get one?
I think that that's not enough. I think that DNI person, it's bullshit. I'm just gonna say stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's not enough. I think it's just really a PR thing. You know what I mean? It's like, for example, we have one at Drift, right? And I'm going and I'm pushing, right? If she didn't have me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to go and push, she couldn't get stuff done, and that's the reality, right? She didn't have David. She couldn't come to the founders. There's just too many walls you're going to hit. And so
Yeah.
I think it's good to have a D&I person from the perspective of, so in case I get misquoted, right? It's good to have them because there are things that somebody needs to be dedicated, in a company for things to be successful. I feel like if it's
Mm-hmm.
everybody's job, it's nobody's job. And so you need someone that is responsible, but you need power. Without power, you're never going
Mm-hmm.
to make progress. And so what I would recommend is the sponsorship, right? To say, have a CRO, have a CMO, have a chief customer officer, have a CFO, have a chief counsel, right? Have somebody, when they have a chief product officer, have a CTO, or have a CEO, right? Or have a COO, whatever. Just get someone into the highest position possible in that company
Mm-hmm.
that that has a specific job, but that can be of color, that can bring that diversity, right? So that they can support that diversity and inclusion person, right? Because it's just questionable that even if you make them chief, that they have the right support. And I feel like, um, what's happening now with Black Lives Matters is that I think we're now thinking we're becoming bolder and saying it's time to speak up, right? It's time to have a voice, but it's not enough if you're not the CEO, if you're not a C-level, right? And when you hire a C-level person that is of color, I think then that will change it. And that's like my own, I get asked that at Drift. When are we going to have somebody else? And I'm like, well, okay, you got two, but I'll keep working on it, right? To
Yeah.
get more. But I think that it's about power. You need to have as much access to power to make this happen.
Yeah, and that kind of, it's interesting. I think too, I've heard a lot of people say it starts with building a pipeline of diverse talent, right? And while I think that's true of building a pipeline, diverse pipeline at the top of funnel for hiring is an important step. Like what you're saying is like the work doesn't stop there, right? Like there needs to be pathways for upward mobility of diverse talent too. So it's not just like it's bullshit that you're saying, oh yeah, we're diverse. We added one person to the loop that's Latino, right? Like son de Mexico, son de Argentina, no sé, pero like that's not diverse, right? Like you let's say now you get them in. Let's say you have diverse talent. What is your take on how to get more diverse mobility, right, of diverse people?
Yeah, I mean that's like, I think it takes, remember we're a growing company, and I aspire to be the model company for this.
Mm-hmm.
We want Drift to become the new face of corporate America in terms of our diversity across every level, right? That's one of my missions. The other mission is for Drift to become an enduring company, $10 billion company, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. And I think that, and by no means we are doing this yet in every way that we should be, but two things. One, in a company, for it to be successful, to grow, we need to have clarity of performance.
Yeah.
Right. And this is, people don't like this, right? And in sales, it's kind of easier. It's like, did you hit your number? Did you not hit your number? But across the board, you gotta have clarity, because if not, it becomes political. The problem is promotions become, who is in charge, who's making them. And so that is something right now that I'm processing in real time in my mind, of how to bring transparency, right, and how to bring fairness, right, into how people get promoted and who has that performance in a company. Because right now the typical is usually a manager advocating for their team, and then you just pick, as opposed to a standard of how people do it, right? And that is, I think, very important. So you need a global system of performance review in the company first, that everybody can see and understand. And then that'll create more of an equal footing for everybody to do that. And then the second is, it's really about the inclusivity and the support and the sponsorship that the people of color are going to need regardless, right? You can have a transparent system. It doesn't mean it's going to be fair, or it doesn't mean that we're going to feel comfortable, right, advocating for ourselves or making through. The unconscious bias is still going to be there. And so the question is, how do we do it, right? And those are things that I'm actually really thinking about Drift, and how do we build committees. Believe it or not, I hate the word committee, but it's starting to get to the point that I don't want to be involved myself and make the judgment calls on all these decisions, right? I want to be able to bring a committee and give power to that committee to make those committees diverse.
Yeah.
Like Amazon has this thing called the bar raisers, right? Where they make sure in the committee, when you're hiring someone, that you're presenting a body of work of this individual, how they're going to increase, the average, how you're going to raise the bar in the company. And so I want to do that, and I want to be able to put, people of color in that committee as well, to help against that bias, regardless of their position.
Yeah, and something interesting there too is like, you mentioned like there's a lot of PR plays on like diversity, and you mentioned this earlier, like, hey, like we're diverse, right? Like we're gonna say we're gonna do something diverse just to post it on LinkedIn and say we're diverse, right? And I think what gets left behind a lot of the time, as you bring up committees, is like the power of a diverse workforce, right? Like bringing different schools of thought and the magic that could happen when you have a diverse workforce, not for publicity's sake of having a diverse workforce, but like the magic, what can be built from it, right? And that's what, from you, do you have any experiences of like teams that were like fairly diverse, and because there was these different opinions and different backgrounds and something they created, or like how have you seen the power of that, right?
Well, I think that diversity is not, how can I say, it's really about our values, right?
Yeah.
It's about our values as individuals, right, that we bring into it. And so if you all grew up in the same wealthy town in the suburbs of Massachusetts, right, your values are entirely different than my values, right? Which is, I'm an immigrant, that I had food stamps, and that I worked from the lowest job to continue at the lowest job she's doing right now. And it's about who I am as an individual. How did I grow up? How was my family situation? What was my financial resources, my faith, my family, my traditions, my language, my perspective? It's like, that is what we're really talking about. I think we get lost into trying to defend, is it because I make tortillas in Nicaragua that it's going to make me more valuable to a tech company? Yeah. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about, it's my drive. It's my ability to learn.
Mhm.
It's things that I can draw upon, or that on those, you know, on my experiences that make me who I am, right? When we are in a tough situation in a company, in a startup, if you never endure something painful, right? If you're like, if you have a nice access to a network, but you don't know how to endure a tough situation, a rejection, right? If you
Mhm.
don't know how to help somebody else that is having a problem in the team because you never went through that problem yourself in your life, it's like, it's every single one of our experiences that makes us diverse. This is not about like, how much Spanish do I need? This is not about, you know, in my business or my customers, right? But it's like we said at the beginning, it's like, it's the human race that we're trying to bring into here, and not just build it, be exclusive of who gets to start a company, who gets to work in a high tech company, for example, right? Is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I, that's a great point too. And like, and bringing in those different experiences, the different cultures, the different values, right? Like, what's the, you know, in your opinion, I know that you don't have the answers, but what's the North Star here, right? Like, let's say you were a $10 billion company, Elias, and you were able to have everything you wanted in terms of diversity. Like, what would that look like?
Well,
Okay.
the North Star is a company that is very clear about its principles, right? And when you're hiring people, it's about the team of people that make up that company, right?
Mhm.
And so, what is it that I want in a company? I want a company of people that, what are our principles that put the customer at the center of everything that we do, that creates a culture of trust and respect, right? Practices extreme ownership. So it's about humility, it's about scrappiness, it's about ability to learn, about seeking feedback, not consensus. And so all those things are the Drift leadership principles. And what I want is people that embrace those. I don't care where they come from, right? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want everybody just from Vermont that exhibit those principles, right? I want people from all over the world that exhibit them, right? In their own unique way and combination, right? Because it's about their personalities, it's about how they grew, right? It's about the scrappiness, it's about the ability to do more with less, right? The ability to serve a customer and underserve customers from all over the world, right? And understand what they need and how they want to be treated. And so it's about, those are the things when you're bringing people into a company, there's four quadrants in it. There's the employment experience that everybody looks at, the resume. There's the knowledge, there's the skills, but the most important is the character traits, right, of that person.
Mhm.
Their intelligence, their empathy, is their values, their integrity. All those things that is what you're looking for. And so, to me, the North Star is that we are seeking for individuals like that, and that we're bringing them from all over the place, and that
Mhm.
everybody, just like that American dream that I have, can go into Drift and be like, oh, I can move upwards in that company because I bring those to the table, right? And I excel and I respect others and they respect my work, right? I practice extreme ownership. I don't point the finger at it. I'm not creating more gossip, but I go
Mhm.
directly to the person and fix that. That's the company I want to build, right? That people don't even have to ask me about this, right? That is just, if you look at, there are companies, my understanding, right? There are global companies, like maybe Unilever or something like that, Europe, that have offices all over the world, that diversity is just way more normal, right? Because people are going from South America to Europe to the United States, back, Asia, Africa, everywhere, right? And they're just like moving, taking jobs. That's the kind of company I want to build, right? But it's like, but it starts here. So more companies in this country can become like that, right?
Yeah, and gosh, I mean, there's a million things I want to say right now, but one thing that came to mind was with what you just said there, Elias, is I was watching at our sales kickoff a few months ago, back in February. Um, One of our investors spoke at our SKO, and he was like, the number one question that I asked founders when I believe it was for Jeeve, for Jeeve, if you're listening, sorry if it wasn't you here, but it was, um, someone said that the first question I ask founders when I invest in them is to tell me their story, not where they went to school, not what their quota attainment was. I don't care about that. I want to hear their story, like how they grew up, where they came from, like how why they're built the way they're built, right? And like to me, that changed how we interview people. I've interviewed probably hundreds of people here at Outreach from when we were a small company 4.5, 5 years ago, and you know I can't believe I didn't think about that, because we typically only look at the wins, right? We only look at the, oh, here's what I got quota wise, just to make it easier. Here's the achievements I've unlocked, but like you're never really looking at the why behind it. So I started to change that, and it kind of just opened my doors, and I felt like that for me was a way to see into people and like differentiate, right? Because everyone that as at Drift, you get some of the best candidates in the world, and when they all have these same achievements, how do you differentiate?
Right.
um, and so like for myself, like I Mexicano, right? I grew up in the projects with my mom down in San Bernardino, California, one of the worst places in the world, right? Or dangerous, not worst in the world. Come from there, so I'm very appreciative of it. But right, but when you look at me and you see, hey, like, oh, blonde hair, blue eyes, like, probably just another guy that went to a great school and got good grades. um but then the story behind that's what's powerful. Like if I told you that whole story, right, of like what you see on paper is not totally what you're getting, I think is something that I've tried to change, right? And I think for me, if someone was to ask me like, hey, what's a habit we should change in getting a diverse client base, is I think understanding the stories behind why people, who they are, right? Look beyond the skin color, look beyond the eye color, and look beyond all that.
Right. Which is that's why you want to interview for those traits, right?
Yeah.
And story is what backs up, but you also have to have the wins, right? What kind of wins did they have? And in order to
Hmm.
put equity into it, you need to say like, it's about winners, but it's not about the type of win that is like the consistent win. Oh, just sales quota, sales this, but it's like be able to get to know them. It's funny. I did live in Southgate, California. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
as a teenager, so I kind of know what that's like a little bit.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
So
lived there in the late '80s, so like this is like Ice Cube NWA days, the hats
yeah.
and the Cortezes and the iron pants. So I've been there. I've been there
Yeah.
too.
It's a crazy, yeah, it's a crazy place. And um looking back, like your experience too, like didn't you work at McDonald's, right, for a while and did all that? And
First started from working the kitchen at McDonald's because I couldn't even speak English to be on the front taking an order. Right. In fact, I couldn't understand the order unless it was coming out through the printer, and I was like, okay, it's like Big Mac, no onions, extra sauce or something. It was like, no, if they yelled it out, I couldn't hear. I couldn't understand.
yeah, that's unbelievable. And like for me, people, like I'm known to be scrappy too, right? Like so that makes you just who you are, right? Like I remember when I was a kid, and my mom, we didn't have much when I was younger, and she was like, I'm gonna start a business. And she would wake up at 2 a.m, go to her office that she started, and I would go sleep on the couch at 3 a.m. in the morning until school started, and then go there. Then I come back after school and help her process x-rays, right? So I'd come back from school and help work, and people were like, "Is this your son working in a X-ray dark room, like process X-ray?" I had a stool to jump up on because I couldn't reach the machine, you know. So
But that's exactly it, right? You know what I mean? It's like how you approach work, right? And you were telling me right now with COVID, you're working back to back, and it's hard to do it. It's like sometimes it's okay if you're at work at home and you feel like, oh, I'm gonna work more, and that might happen to everybody. But if we're under a crunch and you need to do something and you need to work hard, you're not gonna be like, well, this I've never done that before in my life. Imagine that in your life you always woke up late, you didn't have to worry, your parents, you know, maybe you only have one parent working, or maybe they both work and you had nannies, and if you had this and you never need to do any of that, and you would just be upset and spoiled. But you have this background when you're like, Wake me up at 2, no worries. I'll sleep wherever. And then if I need to start working at 6 a.m., I'll do it, right? Sometimes that's what we need to build a company. And that is what makes you who you are. And you will respond completely different. And that's what we don't embrace as much, right? We just think that if we all went to Harvard and we all had the same classes and we had the same teachers, that is perfect. That's all you need. Right?
Mhm.
Well, guess what? No, you need all kinds of people in a company. And
Absolutely.
yeah, don't start getting me angry. I see right now the levels of COVID in Latinos right now, and I think, and people are like, they have no choice, they have to work. And so we might be here ordering food and it's getting delivered, and we go to Whole Foods and the grocery is packed, and we're like, well, it wasn't a long line today.
Hmm.
We're forgetting who picked up that fruit, who's working there. They have to show up, because if they don't show up, they lose their job, right? But they're getting the most infections. And we just get to see
Hmm.
that. And we're just not aware of that ethic, of those values, of those needs, right? Of that perspective of people that are working really hard, and how we're not going to appreciate that and have it in every company in this country, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
it's the kind of stuff that people just don't see it. And so we have to bring visibility to it.
Yeah. And what's the so Elias, as we round this up here, like for you, what's the one habit that you think all startups, you're a startup guy here, like what's the one habit that startups can change today, right now, after listening to this, that they could change to make a more diverse workplace, whether it's for people of color, Latinos, any type of minority?
As a habit,
Mm-hmm. Was a habit. Because we all have the goal, right? And just going full circle here, as like the lesson here learn, I think, in this is it needs to be a habit. If it's a goals can get missed, they can get lost. But like, how do people make it a habit so it's an everyday thing, from the bottom to top down?
yeah, I mean, I think that, I think if one of the things that I've been saying, three things, as this, uh, anti-racist, efforts are going on. One of the things that I've said to myself is, I said three things. I'm gonna stop judging, right? Whether people are doing enough or not. I'm gonna stop judging, right? It's just that you can't. Second, educate yourself, and third, pick a lane, right? And say, like, what is it that you're going to do? Because I can't be in every lane. It's really hard as a founder. Everybody comes to me and says, like, are you doing this? And what about this? And what about giving? And what about the company giving? About mentoring? It's like, it never ends. And as much as I'm doing, there's always somebody that will ask me for more. And so you just pick a lane and do something. And so I would say, as people right now are trying to figure out what to do, I would say, become an ally, become a sponsor, right? I think that's something everybody can do. And so say, I'm going to be a real sponsor. I'm going to be a real ally, and go read about it and go ask for help, right? Of things you can do as a sponsor every single day. That's something you can do from every level down. It's like, who are you going to help in your company, and say, I'm going to pick this person. I'm going to go reach out to them and say, how can I help, right? I don't even know what an ally or a sponsor is, right? And like, what I'm going to read is, do you want me to help you? Do you want me to back you up in a meeting? Do you want me to give you confidence? Do you want me to, advocate for you, right? Or do you want me to share you my network or my learnings or whatever? So be a sponsor and go do that every single day. Do something for that individual, for two, for three, inside, outside of the company. Mentor someone, in leadership, refer. You know what I mean? I think through sponsorship, I think you can be doing something every day across all the things that we've been talking about, right? But I just
Absolutely.
want to leave people with that thinking. It's like, pick a lane, and that lane might be an ally, right?
And stick with it.
Every day, stick with it, right?
Yeah, and that's building the habit there.
That's good.
Add dinner. Exactly. Well, Elias, this has been an awesome show here. We got pretty deep, and I had a great time talking with you, Elias. So, if people want to reach out, learn more, get you on their podcast, what's the best way to reach you?
It's Elias@drift.com, right?
Okay.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. It should be pretty easy to find. I love this stuff, and I really want to really, hear from. I'm here building a network, right? Building a
Mhm.
Latino network for people that are saying I can't find that talent. I'm building it for you, so there will be no more excuses, right? And we can really bring diversity. I not only want to bring diversity to our company, but I want to bring diversity to all the companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Elias. I really appreciate that. Y gracias a todos por escuchando hoy.